Hello and welcome to Oddspedia Premier League Match Day 21. Tom Rennie's nightmare is over because 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗀𝐻𝐻 is in the job seeker allowance trying to find a new job. Tom, are you happy?
Yeah, I mean, he had to go in the same way Sean Dyche had to go for different reasons. Everton were unwatchable. West Ham were going nowhere. There's still plenty of season to go. It's the last time you should really be sacking your manager before it becomes really desperate. And so I agree with both decisions, to be honest.
All right. Well, we will talk about it, of course, in the next few minutes. Stay with us, guys. Remember to leave your comments, press the like, subscribe. Let's go on now with the show. And let's start these midweek games with a massive game. Nottingham Forest, Liverpool is our first game. Third against the first in the standings, only 6 points away. What a season for Nottingham Forest. Beat Wolves 3-0 away, 6 consecutive wins in the Premier League. So it was a perfect Christmas time for them. And Liverpool, they had a setback in the Carabao Cup against Spurs and drew, surprisingly, I would say, again, against Man United. It's difficult, this game for Liverpool, but it's almost like grabbing a piece of the title, I guess, if they win here.
Yeah, the way the table currently looks, their biggest rivals for the Premier League title might well be Nottingham Forest on the form they are on and the teams they are beating and the scorelines they're getting. They've won their last 4 matches in the Premier League without conceding, which is incredible. Before that, they beat Aston Villa coming from behind to win that. It's 6 in a row in terms of victories. They have players like Morgan Gibbs-White and Chris Wood, who we've spoken about a lot this season, who are just coming into the form of their careers in a team that's built around what they can do. Murillo's been out for a couple of games, but even in his absence, they've been very strong. Milenkovic has been great. Sells making great saves. Everyone feels good at Nottingham Forest, and they are just finding ways to grind out results through the toughest period of the season and doing it incredibly impressively. Look, I think it is fair to say that the last couple of games, Everton and Wolverhampton Wanderers are 2 of the worst teams in the league. And Forest, one of the better teams in the league, got past them. It's fair to say when they beat Tottenham were in a bad moment, lots of players out, all of that, and the Villa victory was kind of fortunate. So look, there are caveats to this, but we could do the same thing with Liverpool's form as well. At the moment, there are very few more dangerous opponents in football than Nottingham Forest in this form. They've kept the most clean sheets in the competition this season 9 times, and they have also scored 10 goals in their last 5 games, which means our big sort of what's going on with Forest, why don't we think they can win the league? Our biggest thing was they don't score goals. Well, they do score goals now, 2 per game across the last 5. So it's all coming together. And they're also a very good away side. They're at home here, but they'll play like the away side as they do in so many games. 30 to 40% possession, take chances when they come. So it's set up very nicely here for Nottingham Forest. It's whether they can get through the door that maybe Liverpool are just leaving a bit ajar at the moment. The Man United game, I thought they were very poor across the entirety of the 90 minutes, not just the second half where the game was very helter-skelter and goals were being scored at both ends. I have my doubts about 𝐿𝐿. I know a lot of people love the 𝐿𝐿-Van Dijk partnership. I've never been particularly convinced by 𝐿𝐿. He seems a touch gaff-prone, but when he's not there, Gomez is injured, 𝐿𝐿 is a big drop-off with all due respect, and that leaves you with not the strongest defensive pairing, and the form of Trent Alexander-Arnold has been a massive talking point this week. Offensively outstanding, defensively can be suspect, and frankly looked all over the place in the game against Manchester United. So a few issues there. Plus, I wonder whether Arne Slot might now need to nail down his best front 3. It's obviously Salah, but who are the other 2? They right now need a Firmino, Mane, and Salah grouping, in my opinion. And going Luis Diaz one game and Darwin Núñez one game, and then somebody else, Diogo Jota, trying to find a trio that works. Needs to settle on one, in my opinion, and go with it for a few weeks, because they are just struggling a little bit in the last couple of games for rhythm. Not necessarily goals, but rhythm across the last few games. So how's it going to go? Well, I don't discount the draw here. I think there's every chance Nottingham Forest, the way they have played this season, can hold Liverpool. We saw Leicester run Liverpool quite close. United obviously ran them close, and Spurs beat them in the Carabao Cup. Very strong Liverpool lineup in that team as well. So draw at 3.8 I like. And also, on the form Forest are on, at 4.5 to win, you can absolutely take a punt on that as well. If you want Liverpool, I would look low scoring here. I'd look more like the wins they were getting against the likes of Wolverhampton Wanderers early in the season than the 5-0 thumping of West Ham. You can get Liverpool to win 1-0, 2-0 or 2-1. That's a group bet at 3.25. Really good odds for a Liverpool victory of any kind. And also in the under market, I also like pick the draw, which is already 3.8. Add under 3.5 goals in this match. That's 0-0, that's 1-1. That brings you at 5.5. But a low-scoring game could go either way. I would just say draw here, but then Liverpool low scoring always stands out.
Well, the odds for Liverpool are very low, only 1.8, considering the season Nottingham Forest are doing. Well, let's go with the games we have. At 8:30 is Brentford Man City, the first game. Man City finally climbing back-to-back wins against West Ham and Leicester City. This should be a tougher game. It was a very tough stadium, but they lost the last two home games against Nottingham Forest and Arsenal, but bounce back. And what a way to bounce back, Tom, against Southampton. But Man City to win 1.7 is actually kind of appealing, I would say.
Yeah, I think it is. And I would take that as the top tip in this one, because it's rare to get City at the odds we're currently getting. And spoiler alert, it's not going to last long. I think the big dip is over, even though they weren't great against Leicester or West Ham. I do think they'll start racking up some wins here. I mean, in terms of Brentford, their first half of the season record at home was obviously outstanding. But what happened, weirdly, was that in the first half of the season, they basically played the bottom half at home and the top half away. And so they couldn't win against the top half and were beating the bottom half. We've now reversed that. And so at home, they've got the top half and they're losing to teams like Forest and Arsenal. And away, they've got the bottom half and they're thumping Southampton. They are the 10th best team in the country. And they're beating everyone in front of them and losing to everyone below them. And that's just kind of the way it's going to go for Brentford, I think, for the rest of this season. So they may well struggle at home for the rest of this campaign and start picking up some surprising, unexpected away points. Brian and 𝗵𝗼 and Worcester again impressed against Southampton. I think that the solidity that they have in terms of organisation is shown when they've got so many defensive injuries. Ajer's still missing, Rico Henry missing all season pretty much. So Ethan Pinnock, Ben Mee, Hickey. That's all the defence and the backup defence all missing. And yet other players can just slot in, be it Janelt going back into the three or whatever else they do, and they can just continue to make it work. So it's incredibly commendable. In terms of Man City, the performance of Savinho was the difference maker against West Ham last week. His cross led to the opening goal, though why Areola's on his backside when the cross is coming in, I have no idea. And then, of course, his skill to beat 𝐿𝐴𝐴𝐵 is fantastic. But again, goalkeeper's gone walkabout on the cross. But it was his brilliant attacking endeavour that got City over the line. And that's kind of what they've been missing. They're getting nothing from Grealish, getting nothing from Doku, getting less than they would like from the minutes from Kevin De Bruyne, nothing from Foden still all season. We've had nothing from Phil Foden. We're in January now, and he's barely performed. So that was the difference, that one of their individual stars actually played like a star last week, and that was Savinho. They'll be hoping that will continue. I still think the midfield balance is off. You won't be surprised to hear that. And I think on another day, West Ham might have got 2 or 3 goals before City got back into the game. So still very able to get at City right now, because, again, there's a huge hole in central midfield where Rodri should be. How's it going to go? I'd pick the Man City win at those odds. I think that's quite nice. Erling Haaland scoring again against Leicester and West Ham. Put Haaland in a City win. I'd go with that as well. And I don't expect a great deal of goals here. Look at the under market and City win.
Well, Man City looking for the 3rd consecutive win, and they are right now only 2 points away from the Champions League spots and 12 points away from Liverpool. Chelsea Bournemouth is the next game. Chelsea in the 4th spot in a bad run. Drew with Palace, only 2 points in the last 4 games, losing to Fulham and Ipswich. So actually they had an easy schedule this Christmas time, but they were not good. And Bournemouth, on the other hand, very close to the European spots after beating Everton with Brooks scoring the winner. Tom, no defeats in the last 8, so this is a difficult nut to crack for Chelsea for sure.
Yeah, definitely. Tough game, though. In terms of Bournemouth, it's worth noting right at the top here, they lost Evan Nilsson to essentially a broken leg, and he's going to be out for months on end. Enes Ünal is his natural replacement. He's the guy who scored that amazing free kick against West Ham a few weeks ago, and he's done a cruciate ligament this week. So both players out of this game, potentially out for the rest of this season. You add that to the long injury list that Bournemouth have got: Adam Smith and Alex Scott, Luis Sinisterra, Tavernier, one or two others. I'm not sure what sort of team they're going to put together. And that's going to be the big issue for Bournemouth. It's already quite a small squad, and a small squad of players that have overperformed. When you take away all the strikers and all of that, I think they might start to struggle now. Look, I hope I'm wrong, but I think that might be the case. So it's a perfect time in many ways for Chelsea to face a team who, even with Evan Nilsson and Ünal across the last few games, who've drawn 3 of the last 5. Beyond the win against Manchester United, they've not looked particularly dominant in any of these games, and they squeaked past a really atrocious Everton last week in a pretty unwatchable game. So some concerns there for Bournemouth, as there are for Chelsea. I blame myself, because when they beat, I forget who they beat now, in mid-December, start of December, I thought, you know what, they might have every chance of winning the league this year. And then 0-0 against Everton, 2-1 loss against Fulham, lost to Ipswich inexplicably, then drew against Crystal Palace. So I blame myself for taking Chelsea seriously. Every time I think I've got my line on Chelsea, it goes completely the other way. And I wonder if Enzo Maresca has almost been a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, in that he said, oh, we can't win the league. Well, yeah, now they can't. What if it had said something different and shown some intestinal fortitude and was like, yeah, of course we can win the league. We're Chelsea. We spent £1 billion on players. We've got Cole Palmer, best player in the league. Instead, he was a bit timid. I wonder if that affected the players. I wouldn't be surprised to hear that was the case. 7-5, still scoring goals through Palmer and Jackson. Palmer still creating a bunch of chances too. I do see them as favourites going into this game, despite the issues there have been. Chelsea win, take that straight up. As ever, take Jackson scores and Chelsea win. Palmer scores and Chelsea win. I do think quite low scoring, though. Again, if you look at these two teams across the season, Bournemouth have been right in every game. They rarely get thumped. They concede just over 1 goal per game. It's 23 conceded in 20 games. A really good defensive record. Chelsea just 1 goal more conceded in 24. Don't look at the goals scored. Look at the goals against. These are pretty decent defensive units. Even though Chelsea do spit up chances when the game opens up, they still don't concede on average many goals. So I wouldn't be surprised to see this end under 3.5 goals, then pick your winner. I'd say Chelsea.
All right, you trust Chelsea is very packed or very tight. The fight for the 4th spot is 4 teams in, 5 teams in only 4 points, including Chelsea and Bournemouth, of course. And the last game on Tuesday is West Ham Fulham. As we said at the beginning, 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗀 was sacked after losing 4-1 to City and 5-0 at home against Liverpool. Graham Potter is the new manager, and Fulham is always better to back them when they are playing against tough opposition, because they couldn't beat Ipswich, for instance, or Bournemouth at home, but they haven't lost in the last 8 games, Tom.
Yeah, tough to beat, no doubt about that, Fulham. But to be fair, West Ham were quite tough to beat before the thrashings to Liverpool and City. I mean, the 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗀 sacking, we've spoken about a lot this season. He didn't get sacked because of the 5-0 loss against Liverpool and the 4-1 loss against Man City. That can happen. He got lost because in both games they were beaten by the hour mark, which was rather pitiful. The players seemed to have given up. The performances across the season have been no good. I've heard some talk that they were good at any point this season. No, it was a bad fit, and it was a bad fit all season. And I think Graham Potter is a good fit for West Ham, and I think he should have got the job in the summer. I don't think West Ham, again, will be drawn into a relegation battle. They might flirt just above it, but I think they'll nudge their way to at least 40 points this season. But they do need to pick up points in games like this. No Jarrod Bowen still, and that remains a huge issue for West Ham. He is their best player, the most important player. Mohamed Kudus has contributed very little this season to West Ham. So out in the Bowen role, Kudus has got to do a lot more. If he had a bit more composure, they might have got something against Man City last week, and we're in a different world. Full Crew scored a couple of goals, but again, not really suited to this team. But if they can get a chance to him in the box, every chance he can score. Want to see more of Somerville. Graham Potter's big issues, though, are what's the best midfield? He's got to find one from the hodgepodge group of nonsense that Tim Steidten and 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗀𝗀 put together. and he's also got to work out a way to stop conceding goals. Because they're conceding so many goals, West Ham. I think just the bottom three have conceded more than them this season. So some coherence in terms of player for player, a coherent, makes sense lineup. They will win games like this, West Ham, though I wonder how attractive it will be. In terms of Fulham, 3 draws in their last 4 in the Premier League. The other win was the game against Chelsea, which they just squeezed over the line in. Look, incredibly tough to beat because they're well organised. But if you are relying on individual players who have had intermittent careers like Smith Rowe and 𝗻𝗄 and Traore and Jimenez, every now and then they're not going to fire. And that has happened a bit against Ipswich, against Bournemouth, against Southampton. And so they could every chance rip West Ham apart here, or they could struggle to create and yet still remain quite solid. We'll have to see what sort of Fulham we get on the day. In terms of how it's going to go, it screams draw to me. West Ham, before the run of defeats against Liverpool and City, had drawn 2 of 4 against Brighton and Bournemouth. I think it will be similar to that. I wouldn't discount 1-1 here. Fulham, we mentioned already their run of draws against Ipswich, Bournemouth and Southampton most recently. I think West Ham are going to start setting out to be real tough to beat. Fulham are already there. If you are going to pick a winner, I do like West Ham at nearly 2.75 they are, so 2-1 just about. I do think there will be a new manager bounce because 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗍 made everyone so miserable. And I don't expect Kudus to be miserable and 𝗀𝗏𝗏 to be miserable. And some of these guys that just didn't understand what earth 𝗵𝗵𝗃𝗍 was saying. Like, now maybe they can give us... I mean, there's a talented squad there. It might not work as a whole unit, but there's lots of talent. So I expect a new manager bounce, and so I'd probably shade for West Ham as my second bet. And if West Ham win, it'll be tied. 1-0, 2-0 or 2-1. 4.33 as a group bet. Very nice. I'd like that.
Well, West Ham are the underdogs for this game, but the odds are very high for all 3 outcomes. And talking about a new manager bounce or manager sacked, let's talk about Sean Dyche and Everton on Wednesday. Already we have Everton Aston Villa. Sean Dyche was sacked. At the time we are doing this video, we don't know the replacement, but it looks like David Moyes could take the job. Now Tom Rennie will tell us. He's only 1 point away from the bottom 3. For Everton, lost to Bournemouth, to Forest without scoring. Only 1 goal scored in the last 5 games. Only 1 win in the last 11 games. Therefore, you get sacked. And Aston Villa is going to be difficult, and they want to be closer to the Champions League spots. It's only 4 points away from the top 4.
Yeah, look, I think Sean Dyche run out of steam. There's a story doing the rounds, which I tend to believe. There was a meeting between the Friedkin Group, who own the club now, and Sean Dyche last week sometime, and he more or less said to them, I've taken Everton as far as I can, which he has. I think that they would have found a way to get Premier League safety this season, but that's about it. The way they've played has been just diabolical, frankly. There's a total lack of ambition about Everton. If you think back to Man City a few weeks ago at 1-1, defended stoically, played really well. They've got a counter-attack. Was it 5-on-3? And they turn back to the halfway line and lose the ball. They don't have the confidence to score goals and win games. And that's a problem for Everton. Just 3 goals scored in 5. No goals scored in their last couple of Premier League games. The performances against Forest and Bournemouth were truly pitiful. And look, he had to go. I think David Moyes, should he come in, would be a great appointment. I don't know whether Everton fans would be delighted with that, considering he spent a decade there, which ended when Alex Ferguson left in 2013. So, look, I feel like it would be a step backwards, but also weirdly in the right direction, because Sean Dyche had given up, I think, if that is to be believed. So I don't think it improves the playing staff very much. I think he's got lots of issues to walk into. 𝐿𝐵𝒄 doesn't score. Beto doesn't really score. I think he scored against Peterborough in the cup. Dwight McNeil is injured still. That's their most creative, if not only creative player. I'm not sure when he'll be back. I don't think for this one. And defensively, they concede lots of goals, Everton. Recent run has been quite good in terms of getting 0-0s, but if they try and open up in any way, they start to concede. 25 in 19. Look, not the worst record in the division, but if you're not scoring goals, 25 is quite high. You're looking at a 1.3 per game average. That's fine if you've also got a 1.3 scored average. They've scored 15 goals this season, less than a goal a game. That means you've got to win games 1-0, and it's a tightrope all the way through. So for them, it is lots of goals. Compared to other teams, 25 wouldn't be the worst record ever. So Going to be interesting here to see how Everton do. In terms of Aston Villa, it has been a lumpy, bumpy season. Some great results, beating Leicester, beating City. Some bad results thrashed at Newcastle, drawing against Brighton. I think that Pau Torres being in the team, out the team, in the team, out the team has been really significant. For me, he's their most important player in terms of the defensive unit. And when you keep shuffling that defense around, is it 𝐿𝐭𝐴? Is it Diego Carlos? Is it anyone else? That's been an issue. The midfield looked better, though. John McGinn coming back in February will make a big difference. Kamara coming back has helped, but I think McGinn is a necessity. And then John Duran and Ollie Watkins have gone very hot and cold all season, the pair of them. They've lacked a little bit of rotation on the wings as well, which has cost Villa at times. I wonder if they might think, with where they are in the Champions League, a couple of smart investments here in this window, someone on the wide right, someone on the wide left who can come on and change the game. That might be a difference maker for them. Look, you couldn't look at Everton to win here. Certainly not without knowing who the new manager is. David Moyes, we don't know as we record this, as you mentioned. So take the Aston Villa win at 2.3. I like that. And again, look at the scores in recent weeks. Villa can't score a goal. Villa win to 0, even though their defensive record is not great, frankly. But Villa win to 0 was 4, which is why the odds are such. I know they've conceded in all their last 5, Villa. But I don't know who's going to score for Everton. And so at the moment, you look at 0-0 for every game for Everton until something changes, or Villa win to 0 is 4.
All right, and Everton involved in the relegation battle. Next game is a 6-pointer, Leicester City, Crystal Palace. Leicester, you said it many months ago. Actually, they will struggle. They can go down 5 consecutive defeats in the bottom 3, although only 2 points away from Wolves, so there is still hope. And Crystal Palace 5 points away from the bottom 3 and in really good form. Therefore, Tom, they are favourites to win this game.
Yeah, look, Leicester have hired a dud manager in 𝗀𝗏 van Nistelrooy. No way was he up to this challenge. I don't know many managers that are. Sean Dyche might be able to come into Leicester right now and grind out some 0-0s and they'd sack him at the end of the season, but I don't know what a 𝗀𝗏 van Nistelrooy team is, and I'm not sure 𝗀𝗏 van Nistelrooy does, and you can't allow, I don't think, that kind of experimentation in your hope to stay in the Premier League. I mean, it's just $1 billion business, and they've given it to an amateur to see him through 6 months. Absolutely bizarre behaviour. They're so open, they're easy to score against. The confidence of the new manager bounce has gone. Injuries have been an issue. Hermansen remains out, very good goalkeeper, and Ndidi being out of midfield has been a problem. Jamie Vardy can't stay fit for 1 week, then the next. Squad's not good enough, not enough money to invest. They're going to go straight back down. And they're going to struggle in this game. Crystal Palace, they've done what a lot of teams have done. Forget the 2 games against Arsenal, which were kind of anomalous, one in the Cup, one in the League. You look at the wider scope of Palace performances, and they've become hard to beat, which is what you have to do. Averaging over a goal a game in the last 5. They're getting something again from 𝗀𝗏𝗏𝗏. He's blown hot and cold this season. And I think that there's every chance here they go to Leicester City and give us a similar performance to what we saw against Brighton not too long ago, against Southampton at home. It's going to be tight. They might concede a couple of chances. But with 𝐬𝐻𝐻 up front, with Mateta, with creativity, with a solid defence, with the midfield looking a lot more solid, though Adam Wharton remains missing, with Gay still at the club, with 𝐿𝐿𝐴, who's been fantastic. All of that comes together. Palace grind out a victory here. 1.91. And then I'm looking at Leicester's goals conceded, and it's outrageous. Just across the last 5 games, 4 against Newcastle, 3 against Wolves, 3 against Liverpool, 2 against City, 2 against Villa. So at least 2 goals conceded, but that wasn't much money. So if you're going for a punt, Palace to score 3+ is 3.75. Now, Palace don't score a great deal. I know, that's granted. But every time Leicester play, they concede so many chances. Palace have such creative forces in this team. They can score 3+. And a group bet of 3-0, 3-1, or 3-2 is 6.5. Leicester have scored 2 in their last 5 defeats. I quite like it at the odds.
Well, Tom, next game is Newcastle Wolves. It looks kind of the safe bet of the week because Newcastle is one of the most informed teams in the Premier League, very close to the Champions League spots right now. 5 consecutive wins in the Premier League. They beat Arsenal at the Emirates in the Carabao Cup. They also beat away Tottenham, and Man United is only 1 goal conceded in the last 6 games. So really informed to beat Wolves right now with the same points as Ipswich Town, and coming from a harsh defeat at home against Nottm Forest.
Yeah, what a run Newcastle are on. Terrific defensive rearguard performance in the Carabao Cup against Arsenal in midweek. A great away performance against Tottenham to come from behind to win. Well-deserved victory over Manchester United. Sven Botman has come back after a long time injured. That gives the defence the balance it's been missing for lots of this season. I think Nick Pope should be back in goal for this game. We'll see how that goes. 𝗛𝗵𝗀 has been filling in, but he's in the process as we speak of being sold. So we'll see who is going to be in goal for Newcastle in this game, but hopefully for them it is going to be Pope. I'm sure they wouldn't let 𝗛𝗵𝗀 go unless they had the replacement ready to go. 𝐿𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐧𝐞𝐜 scoring goals in outrageous form right now. Newcastle have scored 13 in 5. 𝐿𝐭𝐴𝐧𝐽 is on a run of 6 or 7 in a row. Scores tap-in, scores great goals, a threat in behind. I mean, I do this every week, how good Alexander Isak is, but the form of Jacob Murphy, the form of Anthony Gordon, the midfield three looks good. Bruno Guimaraes didn't play against the Arsenal in the cup game, so comes back in after suspension, fit and firing and ready to go. All looks great for Newcastle. You can only see a Newcastle win. The only question is how many goals they're going to score. In terms of Wolverhampton Wanderers, look, Pereira's come in. I think there was a little lift in the Leicester game after the debacle of the loss against Ipswich. New manager bounce, if you like, that's fine. Man United met them at a really good moment because Man United was struggling. Bruno Fernandes was sent off, but then you saw the frailties against Tottenham, and then you saw the total collapse against Forest. They had brought a defender in this week from Ligue 1, so we'll see if he is fit enough to play, but that's been their biggest issue this season, being able to keep goals out. They've conceded just so many awful goals this season, Wolves. It's 45 conceded in the 20 games they have played. So averaging 2 concessions per game, 3 in the last game, 2 against Spurs. I don't think that has been fixed as yet. But it's good to see they are scoring goals again, and that is down to, I think, Hwang Hee-chan coming back to fitness and being able to bring in some support for Strand Larsen, who has worked ably and tirelessly this season without much reward. So how's it going to go? I think Newcastle are going to thrash them, frankly. I think Wolves are going to struggle, even though they've made their managerial change. I think they'll stay above the bottom 3 just about. It's them or Ipswich for me for the 3rd relegation spot with Saints and Leicester gone. Newcastle win to nil is 2.63. Then look at the goals market. Give them a minus 2.5 handicap. That's really good for Newcastle. I'd also look at Newcastle scoring 3 or more goals. If you go 4, you make real decent money here. It just depends on whether Newcastle want to go for that 3rd. Once they've scored the 2nd, they have shut it down against teams like Man United recently, but didn't against Ipswich and Villa. So it's how big a win it's going to be. Plus, of course, with Isak in the form he's in, Isak scores a Newcastle win, makes some money too.
Indeed, the Swedish striker is really in form. And for a Wednesday evening, it's not a bad plan to watch the North London derby. Arsenal Tottenham, both teams also played in the League Cup, and Arsenal are still 2nd in the table in the Premier League despite dropping points to Brighton. They are playing a run of 5 consecutive home games at the Emirates, and Spurs are impossible to trust in the head-to-head. Also, the last Tottenham away win was in 2010. So everything, I guess, point to an Arsenal win, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, in general, the North London derby has been tough to predict, though I would say the games at Spurs have been tougher to predict than the Arsenal matches in recent times. I mean, with Arsenal, really briefly, the attack is becoming a problem. They don't have the striker, they don't have the 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐧𝐽, they don't have the Isak, and in games like Brighton, in games like Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, the last 2, it's not about scoring the most goals in the season. It's about scoring goals in games where you don't think you are going to score. And that's what Isak brings Newcastle, and that's what Arsenal don't have. And it's why they're not going to be champions again this year unless they rectify that at some point. No Saka, no Nwaneri on the right-hand side. So that means there'll be a kind of imbalance. Martinelli, Trossard, Jesus grouping. Look, it's fine. It's good. It's top 4 group. It's not a title-winning group. That's going to be a difference. There's no Salah in there. Salah-type player, which Saka, could be. Doesn't get Salah-level numbers as yet, but next year after, if he has one of those seasons, I think Arsenal could win the league. But beyond that, he is their only sort of real world-class player, Bukayo Saka. But then, is he as good as Salah? No, and they play in the same position. So there's your difference. But look, they don't concede many goals still. They need Ødegaard to look well again. He's looked unwell the last couple of games. Didn't start against Brighton for that reason. And I think there's something still dragging on there with him. Doesn't look particularly sharp. But Look, if they get Partey, Rice, and Ødegaard in midfield, the three I've mentioned up front and their strongest defence, they can get past a Tottenham team. I think that, look, I think the new goalkeeper played well in the Carabao Cup in midweek, and I think he is going to be better than Fraser Forster, who's been playing in that role for them for a few weeks. I think Dragusin's got better, not great, but better. But still, having to play Archie Gray, having to play Jed Spence, who the manager doesn't like. Defensive issues going into this game is not what you need. There's still no Romero. There's still no Van de Ven, to the best of my knowledge. And it's a big problem. You know, you just can't go on like this. Those two guys got to come back in. If they stay fit, they'll get up the table, Tottenham. If they don't, then they won't. It's as simple as that. Offensively, Solanke as well. Like, Richarlison has been out for a long time now. And Dominic Solanke is playing every minute of every game. He is a proper workhorse, Solanke. Scored a disallowed goal against Liverpool. Scored the opener against Newcastle. Looks in form, but looks like he could really do with some rotation with someone. They simply can't do it. Midfield remains a mess as well, with Bentancur being out, then in, out, then in. He's out again. Is it going to be Sarr, Bissouma and another? Is it Maddison? We'll find out. But look, Arsenal win at 1.33 is your first bet. It's the North London derby, so don't discount the draw at 5.5. I do think both teams will score here, because there's one thing Tottenham do, and that's find the back of the net, even when they lose. Scored against Newcastle in that defeat, scored against Wolves in the draw, scored 3 in a loss against Liverpool. They often find the back of the net. And Arsenal, frankly, have not been great defensively. They always concede, more or less, a crap consolation or a levelling goal. Brighton, soft penalty. Soft goalie against Brentford. Against Brentford. Soft goal against Crystal Palace in a 5-1 victory. They are a bit susceptible for whatever reason, Arsenal defensively. So both teams to score, and Arsenal win. And look at the card count here as well. It's a derby. I think this and the Merseyside derby are the two most carded games in Premier League history. So look at over 8 bookings in this game, and look at the red card market as well. I'd go for a Tottenham midfielder, frankly. Maybe Bissouma. Bissouma off.
Well, Tom, we have 2 more games on Thursday. Ipswich, Brighton. Ipswich still alive, level on points with Wolves after catching a draw with Fulham and beating Chelsea in the last home game. Brighton, 4 consecutive draws for them, and the draw pays 3.9. Not bad at all.
Yeah, take that. Absolutely. Every Brighton game might now go on the draw, because they can't find a way to win, and they're very difficult to beat. As you mentioned, 4 draws in a row. It's 7 in 8, I think it is. It's ludicrous, the amount of draws they have had this season. It's 10 of 20 games in the Premier League this season they have drawn. And it's a weird old record. I mean, on Ipswich Town, some commendable performances in recent weeks. They have not been out of many games. Only really Newcastle, to my memory, across the last 10 games or so, were they thoroughly beaten. Beyond that, they are always in the fight. Even with the loss against Arsenal, despite the way that game went with like 9% possession, they are always in the fight. They will come undone because of the lack of quality. I like Liam Delap up front, I really do, but he's not a 15-goal-a-season scorer, which is what they are going to need. Someone's going to do something special for Ipswich for them to stay in the division. I don't think that's going to happen. But look, they're incredibly well coached. They're super up for staying in the Premier League. You watch Southampton, they are done, they are finished, they are ready to go home. You look at Leicester, they are done, they are finished, they are ready to go home. Ipswich Town are going to claw their way to the very end of this season and do whatever they can to stay in this division. Love teams like that. And that comes down to coaching. That comes down to belief. That comes down to the players really feeling they've got a chance. And they do have a chance. And you saw that in the last couple of games. And they'll play that way here. In terms of Brighton, Danny Welbeck's injury has been so significant for them, way more than maybe we thought. Their best runs this season have been when Danny Welbeck has played, scored consistently, adds a class to that front line that maybe is missing. We saw Gruder last week continually give the ball away. They have players that are great one week and bad the other. That's what happens when you have young or inconsistent or inexperienced players. I think Carlos Baleba has been one of the best players in the league this season in central midfield, but who plays alongside him? Constantly changing. Ayari had a good second half last week, but struggled in the first. And defensively, to not have Lewis Dunk last week, I do think that's significant. He's not the player he once was. He started to fade a bit, Lewis Dunk, after a decade at Brighton, but I think they still need that leadership, and that was missing at points last week across the back line. I think Igor as well, he's injured for this one. He got injured last week, and I've got massive doubts about him. So look, draw at 3.75, absolutely take that. Ipswich drew against Fulham. Brighton have drawn their last 4 in a row. I also think as well, despite how desperate they are to win games, they don't have the quality to get over the line. 7 draws of 20 to 10 draws of 20 for Fulham. It's the most common scoreline for both of these two teams in terms of positive results. So go the draw and look at a multi-score line too. Group bet here, 1-1, 2-2, or even 3-3 is 4.5, but draw all the way.
All right, the draw looks like a very good option. And the last game is Man United Southampton. Southampton, our new Norwich, or even worse, 6 points. No hopes for sure for them to stay in the category. And Man United, I guess there is hope to do it better, Tom, and that draw at Anfield could be the turning point for 𝗀𝗵 Amorim after a dreadful period of Christmas.
Yeah, look, they were really good in the second half against Liverpool. None of us really saw that coming following the weeks previous. I think that Bruno Fernandes, 𝗏𝗏𝗏, and 𝗁𝗏𝗏 coming into the team from the start against Newcastle, where they weren't in the team, suspension and not selected, it makes a massive difference. Like 𝗏𝗏𝗏, I think, is still finding his way in the league. I think Bruno Fernandes is a spectacular player, but they've got to find the right position for him, and it's not back in the 2. It's part of the dual number 10s that Amorim wants to do, and we saw that last week. And 𝗁𝗏𝗏, after his breakout season, it's not been great this campaign for various reasons, but gave a really impressive performance at Anfield last week and outshone Curtis Jones, which was impressive. Jones has been great this season. So that's really good. Defensively, I'd still have my concerns. Onana throws a rick in every now and then. I think Maguire looks good in this 3. Defensively, I have my doubts about Lisandro Martinez as part of a 3. He seems to be struggling in the role that Amorim wants of him. And again, the wing-backs, Diallo was good going forward last week. Forgive me, Dalot, replacing Diallo in that role, was good going forward. He struggled defensively. On the other side, who's the best player? I think maybe we're getting to the end of the experimentation phase for Amorim, and we're now going to get to maybe a more settled team, which will do him a favour. But look, it's all irrelevant, really, because Southampton are useless. Never built a Premier League squad at any point. We've said that since the very, very start of the season. And look, I don't necessarily want to criticise them too harshly for that, because it's not easy to be in the Premier League, right? It's incredibly expensive. And they came up with a very thin squad. And they thought they could stay up in the Premier League with basically more or less their championship squad, and you can't. 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 is a donkey up front. Like, he's a giant man, but he's got no subtlety about him. You need that in the Premier League. Sulemana and even Dibbling to a point. Dibbling's a bit more technically gifted than Sulemana, but they're both hard workers with a little end product this season. Defensively, Jan Bednarek, Harwood Bellis, championship players, and Aaron Ramsdale, look, he can pull off a save or 2, but he can't pull off 100 saves. So, going to lose this one, Southampton. United going to win this one. They'll cruise through it. Brentford scored 5, Palace scored 2, even West Ham scored 1. I expect goals here. Man U win up front. Man U in over 3.5 goals is 2.63. Man U to score 4 goals is 3.75. So 4 goals scored, 3.75. I know that they haven't won in 5, but this is it. This is the one. This is the moment. They can score. They will score. This is the big Man United thrashing.
Finally, I guess they should get a good win, because the season has been awful. They are in position 13 right now in the standings. Well, these are midweek games, match day 21 in the Premier League with Tom Rennie. Remember, of course, that you can still post your own tips in Oddspedia and win cash prizes thanks to our tipster competitions. We have monthly, yearly, and of course the Premier League one. And even you can create your own tipster competition and play with your friends. Tom, let's add a couple more of tips like your safe bet.
Yeah, we're one in this midweek because the top 4 and top 5 have sort of tough games. So I'm going on the Norwich rule, and that is that Southampton keep on losing, and they'll keep on losing to the end of this season. So I'm going with Man United to beat Southampton as my safe bet of midweek, mainly on how bad Southampton are.
Okay, and your 𝐿𝐿𝐴𝐶𝐴?
4-team 𝐿𝐴CCA brings you to 4.35. Chelsea to win against Bournemouth in a tough game. Man City will go to Brentford and get victory there. Newcastle with a win over Wolverhampton Wanderers. Throw Man United at home against Southampton in there too. 4.35. A bit daring on 4 teams, but some very, very close fixtures across this midweek.
Well, Tom, I can see you are back in form after Christmas, of course. With us, I'm also in form, I must say. Well, Tom Rennie, thank you very much. See you very soon. Thanks, everyone, for watching. Bye-bye.